following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
What is up, and welcome back into another episode of the Uptempo Podcast. Tonight we are joined by a very special guest by the name of Harrison Tarr. Harrison, man, how are you doing tonight? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, it's thanks for having me on. I'm having a great evening. Told you I had some Waffle House for dinner. The vibes are good. We're in a good headspace, ready to talk some Auburn ball. And I'm Harrison Tarr. I'm one of the hosts of the College Loop podcast. That's every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, talking all things Auburn between Hugh Freeze, Mickey Dean, everywhere in between. So
love that.
We've got a lot of fun stuff there, and we've been following you guys pretty closely. So I'm super excited to be here on Uptempo, and I'm pumped. So I'm ready to get into it, man.
Love that, Harrison. Well, man, if my dog's in the background, I'm so sorry. We just rescued him here a minute ago, and we've been without him for a week, so he's excited to be back home. I'm so sorry. But Dustin, man, look, I know a lot of stuff has been going on in the softball world. Like Harrison just mentioned, he is just downright into the softball thing, and there's been a lot of action, man, a lot of portal stuff, a lot of people in the fan base kind of going after Mickey Dean, saying that there needs to be a change. Dustin, I'm going to hand it over to you, man, and let you rip away.
Yeah, there's nobody better to have on than Harrison here, so we appreciate him coming on for us. Just a lot of noise, and the reason I wanted to have him on was because, especially on Twitter, you see all these accusations. You see accusations about Auburn doesn't care about women's sports, and Mickey Dean this and Mickey Dean that. And I haven't seen a whole lot of softball all year, and then all of a sudden the season ends and everybody wants to point fingers and blame. So I wanted to kind of weed through the rumor here, weed through what was false, and kind of figure out what the truth of the matter is. And we'll just start there, Harrison. You had some important names enter the portal this week. Just kind of shed light on maybe why those names hit the portal, tell us who they are, and just kind of what's the situation there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack here, Dustin, and I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on and talk because softball's definitely something I'm super passionate about. Women's athletics specifically, something I'm passionate about. Four names that you really need to know going into the transfer portal, leaving the Auburn program, and I'll kind of go in no particular order, but a little bit of an order. Denver Bryant held down third base a lot, contact hitter, put a couple over the wall, hits for average. It's very, very solid piece to your lineup. You've got Jesse Blaine and Carly McConaughey, both contributors throughout their entire Auburn tenure and their entire career. And then you've got a generational talent in Brielis. And guys, yeah, generational talent feels like the right word. 34 home runs, she finds herself. 34 career home runs, rather, across her first two seasons at Auburn. SEC Freshman of the Year. She's should have been an All-American at Auburn. And is going to find herself, now that she's leaving, she's going to end at 9th overall on the Auburn total career home runs list, which when you think about the amount of players that have come through, especially with bonus years of eligibility, that's pretty damn impressive. So a lot of pieces out and a lot of talented pieces coming in. You got a freshman class of, I believe it's 5 or 6. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I go back and forth about whether or not it's 5 or 6. There's also a couple more that I think we can expect to head this way, especially with roster spots now open. And this team's still super young. And you had a second generational talent this year. I mean, and I don't use that term lightly. Maddie Penta is probably going to go down as the best pitcher in the history of Auburn softball. Mm-hmm. And you got pieces returning, and you've got fans pissed off on one side, pissed off on the other, and there's a couple different camps. So it's to your point, you really saw the kind of the smoke blow up after Brielis hit the transfer portal. I mean, let's not play around here. Let's talk about the name that people know, the household name. That even if you only know one player on Auburn's entire softball team, it's probably Brielis. Mm-hmm. And the most valuable NIL name on that team as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. I don't want to like ramble on too long. I'll kind of let you, I guess, guide the ship here and tell me where you want me to go.
Go ahead, buddy. The floor is yours.
You just tell me directionally where you want me to start, because there's a lot of pieces. If you want, I can break down kind of the two camps that I've found, and we talked about it a little bit before we got.
Yeah, where do you fall? Yeah, where do you fall in these two camps? I know kind of off air you said you kind of were straddling the fence here.
That's kind of the perfect analysis, or I guess analogy rather. I'm teetering that metaphorical line, right? And it's a very, very fine line. So I'm trying not to fall into either side. You got your camp that wants Dean going. And Mickey Dean's been the head coach since 2017, took over after, I don't know how much you guys know about the previous tenure, but holy shit, That was a train wreck.
Weirdos.
The product on the field was really, really good.
Yeah.
The off-field problems are, wow, how Auburn actually managed to salvage what they had at that point is miraculous.
Yeah.
So there's the argument that, you know, Mickey Dean has kind of hit that plateau, and Auburn fans, we've seen this movie before. I know on a much bigger scale, but kind of similar argument to Gus Malzahn, right? I mean, you've seen the heights that this program can go to. Back-to-back regional appearances. I personally think Auburn got screwed in not hosting a regional this past year.
Yep.
I actually don't think that's guys. I'm just going to tell you that's a statement of fact. Auburn did get screwed.
Yep.
And not that Clemson didn't deserve to host; they absolutely did. Fantastic softball team, but having two teams below you in the SEC final standings host was bold. That's neither here nor there. On the other side of this camp, you've got a whole lot of people questioning, and actually, I digress for a second. There's kind of the lingering question that both sides will agree about. Is Auburn going about everything the right way, whether that be the dean administration or the athletics department as a whole, or on to victory? There's a buzzword, and there's your clickbait. Because I'm going to say some things about on to victory that I don't want people to think that I'm demeaning it, but there are questions about how on to victory is kind of constructed. There's also so on the other side of this fence, that we're speaking about is Auburn taking care of women's athletics as a whole, but specifically softball right now, because let's be honest, guys, outside of equestrian, softball is far and away the most successful and the highest level of talent right now. I think women's basketball is going to get there eventually, neither here nor there. But there's the whole conversation of, does Auburn Athletics take care financially of softball? Do they spread the love enough? Does on to victory, does that really, is that an entity that can keep talent like Rielis, like Denver Bryant on this roster? And I kind of find myself in the middle, because I struggle to ever find, in most situations, and I say most situations as an innuendo. Dustin and I talked about this before we got on the air. In most situations, specifically at Auburn, I have struggled to find a necessitated change in leadership based on one person's fault alone. The previous football tenure does not apply to that statement at all. But like I said, to keep it softball centric, there are valid arguments. Truthfully, there are valid arguments, and you're going to have both ends of the extreme. And I'll be honest right now, if you're on one end of either extreme, you need to do your research, because you should fall somewhere in the middle. And that kind of falls for kind of like any controversy ever, right? For the most part. And there are interesting thoughts and takeaways that I've heard in the past couple of days that I'm sure we'll get to here shortly.
What you talk about the NIL situation. So here's my first thought when I saw all this pop up. How much money is there? Because I look at, it's 20 transfers in football, right? Was it 19 or 20? But
you want to transfers out or transfers in?
In the portal, how many guys we added?
21.
21. Yep.
21. Okay. A complete new offensive line, and everybody out there is looking for offensive linemen. So how much money went into Peyton Thorne in that offensive line? That's kind of my thing. Before I'm quick to criticize on the victory, I ask, how much money do they have?
Yeah, and that's $1 million question, right? And you bring up a great point, because I know that we're all kind of growing accustomed to this new landscape of the NIL, and I kind of talked about this last night in the Twitter space, trying to kind of put out some fires where I thought that they shouldn't have been lit, but it's still very much in its infancy, guys. We're not sure where this is going to take us. Personally, my takeaway: this is a great thing, and student athletes should be able to make money off their name, image, likeness. That's neither here nor there. I'll lobby for that forever. But On to Victory is an NIL collective. I mean, when On to Victory kind of became a rumor, and we heard about, all these schools were going to have NIL collectives, I'll be completely honest and just be candid with you guys. I was like, what the hell does that look like? And I think the answer right now is we don't know, and On to Victory still doesn't really know. What I do know is that if you donate, you can choose where your money goes. And I don't think there's a single NIL entity or institution that's stupid enough to actually take money from one fund to another. I think that they all understand that would go poorly quick. That being said, your collective, the general collective, when you buy your On to Victory merch, which those pullovers are sweet, by the way, like when you buy the sticker for your laptop, when you donate $10 to the collective, whatever that looks like, the general collective, I don't think anybody really knows how that's delegated. And I'm not challenging anyone as much as I'm just trying to, I guess, provide my take. And if you guys have some insight on that, I would love to be educated here too.
You got something, Blake?
No, go ahead, Dustin.
I just so what would you like to what do you think that they can do better at Honor Victory to support women's athletics as a whole, not just softball? Because I'll tell you, here's my thing, right? Here's where I start with this. I watched these we got Coach Harris is here in basketball. A little bit of excitement. You see all the stuff that she's added in the portal. I tuned into some games and I saw maybe 50 people at some of these games. To me, it starts with us.
Oh, you're so correct. You hit the nail on the head. And there's this whole, I guess, overarching movement and all of the sports world, really, where people, and the WNBA is a great example, about people saying, oh, we're sick of you shoving this down our throat. We're sick of you shoving down this throat on our throat. Okay, I understand your argument if you're not interested. But at some point, we got to find unique ways to grow the game, right? And I'll be honest with you, there is an age demographic. And I don't really know what that number cutoff is. I work in marketing as a full-time job, but I've never sat down and done it. It would actually be a fascinating thesis for any Auburn senior that's watching this. I would be very interested in this dissertation. There's an age cutoff where it's kind of a lost cause, right? They're not super open-minded to growing women's sports. To hell with that. Who really cares? It's focusing on getting the generation right now that can be impactful within the next decade. The young emerging professionals and the people that are open-minded and the next decade beyond. So it's really two generations. And obviously you always want to grow the youth. It starts with that group, in my opinion. And I've kind of had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about how do we grow women's athletics as a whole. It starts with branding. I know that's such a blanket statement, but you kind of have to get corny before you can get serious when you're trying to get people interested in things.
Yeah.
And like I said, I work in marketing every day. I appeal to people who it blows my mind some of the stuff they fall for. I'm not saying I'm a sleazy salesman, but it blows my mind how you get people's attention is what I really would say.
Right.
And I think it's a collective thing that everyone needs to understand that if you really want to grow the game and you want to win championships at your alma mater or your favorite team, whatever you may have that it takes a village. And we can't just point and say, hey, you NIL collective, or hey, you athletics department, you have to do better. You have to show a reason why they should. That being said, it does fall someone on the athletics department because ultimately every single one of these teams is their responsibility, and they all make up one entity. So it's it's a complicated world. But this year's women's NCAA tournament and last year's Women's College World Series were really encouraging numbers. I mean, I don't know if y'all watched the Women's National Championship in basketball. Damn it, that was fun.
It was. It was.
Yeah.
So,
And it got a little traction with the whole "you see me now you don't" and all that, the trash talking. So
hey, and people, the people that are interacting with these things on social media saying, "Oh, play the game the right way." Of course, they don't get this. Congrats, you're helping the algorithm. That's your own fault.
Well, Harrison, real quick, man, I just wanted to ask you this: I've seen people on Twitter talk about John Cohen and pushing the women's side of things, man. Do you think that John Cohen, I mean, I guess saying cares about women's athletics, I mean, that's kind of crazy, but do you think he will push the basketball, the women's basketball department and the softball department and women's gymnastics and things like that?
Well, I think gymnastics, he doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
whether he wants to or not. Gymnastics kind of falls out of this whole, and I almost forget to mention gymnastics, not because I'm not an avid fan, but it kind of solved its own problems, right? Collegiate gymnastics is bigger than it's ever been right now.
Yeah.
And we figured that out. We figured out how to approach that. As far as do I think John Cohen is running a metaphorical full court press on women's athletics and promoting, whether that be women's basketball, women's golf, things like that, trying to grow all the sports. I don't know that we have the sample size. And there were some successful teams. Mississippi State women's basketball has been a solid program for an extended period of time.
Great point.
And until the past couple of years, Mississippi State softball has been relevant. Now, the past couple of years, that's neither here nor there. We don't need to bring that up. That is my argument. But I don't know that we have the sample size, to be completely honest with you, at Auburn. I'm certain that we will find out within 18 months. His first 18 months, in my opinion, are the most important. First academic in a half year is in my opinion, the most important. Like those first 100 days in office for president, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that he can do? Like, what are some of the first steps that you would look at and say, okay, I think we're headed in the right direction?
In terms of investing in women's athletics,
Yeah, just the overall, like you talk about, just turning around the support, turning around how much the athletics department is putting into it, the overall investment.
Well, let me start this, but I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's ass. If you ever have a platform and a university and a community that can help you be successful in this, you have one right now. Because Auburn fans build it, it's like the Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come.
Mm-hmm.
It is truly remarkable, and I'm not just saying that. If you invest in facility upgrades, now I know people are going to come at me and say, Auburn softball just got a new hitting facility. That's great. JB Moore is not the gold standard for softball. It's a fun place to be. I enjoy it. It's not the gold standard for a softball facility. Women's basketball, you don't need a women's basketball only facility right now. If that can be something that we can get to that program where it needs to be, that's a discussion, and then you can kind of be cutting edge in that, right? I mean, I guess you're behind South Carolina, but everyone's picking Don Staley. That's not that's so irrelevant and not ominous. But I think that I guess getting the powers that be on board is priority one. And look, if I knew what happened in those in those meetings of the board of trustees, and I knew which direction the Auburn Athletics really prioritized outside of obviously football and basketball, my name would be Jimmy Rain. So I hate to tell you, I just don't know that there's a good benchmark starting point other than I guess embracing the fact that you have to establish a marketing model and establish a branding model that makes women's sports enticing to attend. If you can get people in person first, the viewership online will come. That just needs to play second fiddle. So I really don't know, Dustin. I mean, it's one of those conversations where everyone has to be open-minded to it. If you want to claim that Auburn's an everything school, then that can be your shtick. And if you want to embrace it, that can be your shtick and that can be your thing. And you can be successful in all areas. So, I mean, it's making it more appealing to recruits is number one. But like outside of that, it starts at the top.
Well, Harrison, man, look, I know Auburn got ripped with having to go to Clemson. Somehow Alabama gets the number 5 overall seed, man, and switching it back to softball just real quick. The biggest thing with Mickey Dean, man, is no super regionals in the 6 years that he's been there. Mm-hmm. No conference titles, no nothing, to be honest. I mean, it's like you said earlier, from where we were under that administration, I know there was some weirdos and terrible things that happened.
Sickos.
Yeah, sickos, dude. But we literally look and sit here and break down Mickey Dean and the job that he has done, man. Can Auburn keep him around and expect to be a winning softball program?
Well, Auburn's in prime position to fire him because they just gave him an extension, and they're really good at doing things like that. So let's start there.
Oh, man.
Hey, if you guys are familiar with my work, I really don't hold back and bite my tongue on stuff like that. Look, that's just the bed that Auburn's made. I don't think Mickey Dean will be terminated this year. I made an analogy in a Twitter space last night that didn't hit with those folks just because I think that it was pretty niche. I think it's going to hit with you guys. Mickey Dean is to Auburn what Matt Luke was to Ole Miss. And you have to keep in mind women's athletics as a whole, specifically college softball. It's a tough sport to recruit in. It's tough to evaluate, and just from a fundamental platform that it's tougher to recruit women's athletics. I mean it's a fact. And we have less tape, we have less analysis, and that's not me pointing fingers at anybody. That's something we can improve on, but we all know that we have strides we could take. And I'm not saying that anybody would deny that. I think 6 years is kind of, you are getting to the point where where Mickey Dean can take you. But the course correct job has to be commendable because this team is a perennial, or excuse me, an annual contender to be in a regional and should have hosted one this year.
Yep.
So there is that defense for Mickey Dean. Now on the counter side, you have 2 generational talents on this roster. And if you break it down just from what we saw this season, you hired Eugene Linty out of DePaul. I don't know if you guys have ever done any research on Linty. Google him. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as we're off the show. It was a head scratching hire in the first place, especially after he was dismissed from DePaul. And we've kind of seen hitters digress year to year.
Yep.
Under that circumstance. Look no further than Brielle's sophomore slumps accounted for, and I mean, she had a crazy rookie freshman season, so let's kind of debunk that for a second. But the base running errors were horrific. I mean, decision making was horrific. It was horrific. I said this in a Twitter space in front of the Ellis family, by the way. So I don't think I'm just saying this behind a screen.
Yeah.
The pitch calling was questionable as hell. You have Maddie Pensa, who I'm sorry, when you have Maddie Pensa and Shelby Lowe, and they're giving up walk-off hits, walk-off homers, kind of on a semi-routine basis, even though you win a lot of series, those kind of levels of talent. Now, Shelby Lowe had an off year; it happens. Maddie Pensa did not. You can't tell me they're missing their spots that much. They're not.
Yeah.
And in-game coaching decisions have been questionable. So there's a solid argument to move forward. But here's the counterpoint, just like any other coaching change. I don't have a list. I have not even compiled a list because Auburn's not going to fire Mickey Dean this year, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. You guys are welcome. I'll come back on and give my condolences if that's the case. But there's really, I don't even have a short list of suitable replacements that aren't lateral moves. It's like women's basketball. It's very top heavy, and everyone's kind of scrambling to be the Cinderella.
Yep. I got to agree with you, man. I have people like DM me and stuff, and they say, "Oh, well, who could Auburn go get?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who you go get, because who's going to come to Auburn? And, like, who's going to leave their top program? You're not leaving an Oklahoma State. You're not leaving a UCLA. You're not leaving an Oklahoma, a Florida State. I just don't see that happening, Harrison. And if you do come to Auburn, you got to deal with Patrick Murphy, and we all know what Alabama's done in women's softball. So it just kind of feels like, I hate to say this, but we're stuck, and we're just, it feels like we're just trying to buy time, man. And it's a difficult place to be in. But, one thing that kind of caught my eye on Twitter, and me and Dustin talked about this on a previous episode, is the argument between Under Armour and Nike right now, man. And I hate Under Armour, Harrison. I hate it. I can't stand it. It is awful. It is the worst line of clothing. That their shoes are terrible. Their shirts are terrible. Their shorts are terrible. Everything, man. Yeah, they're just awful. Do you think that Auburn being sponsored by Under Armour had anything to do with some of these girls leaving?
No.
Okay.
Look, I've had some conversations off the record with some people within the program. Under Armour is not why anybody left, to my knowledge. If that is a leading factor, you know what? I will let you guys know ASAP. And I'm not laughing at you for the Under Armour take. It's just funny that we keep resurfacing this. Now, it is the reason that a lot of girls got injured.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did we see Brie Ellis in a booth this year?
Yeah.
And that's just the softball example. Baseball, don't even get me started on how piss poorly made those cleats are. But yeah, no, I don't think Under Armour's really the reason. I think there's a lot of factors, and it's also important to remember. You talked about how does Auburn get over that hump, and you're kind of stuck. There are girls like Brie Ellis, for example. I know I keep going back to this example, but she is probably the biggest name in the NCAA transfer portal.
Yeah.
That look at what they've done at Auburn and could come to Auburn and be in a similar situation and say, okay, I am one of the premier players in the country and I can transfer pretty much anywhere I want. I've topped out in NIL value, and this program is kind of topped out of where I can go. And if I want to go win a championship, I need to do that elsewhere. Professional softball, not necessarily a career path, but if I want to make the most of my time and make the most of my name, image, and likeness, maybe Auburn's not the spot. This is just not the best fit. And I know that going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. And listen, I'm no stranger to people being pissed off my mention. So come on, it's by Harrison Tarr on Twitter.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I piss people off on a weekly, and I don't want people to think this is like, oh, he hates Auburn. Like, there are plenty of guys, I won't name names, that people drag through the mud. That's not it. It's just, I think realistically, you look and go, okay, maybe Auburn isn't the pinnacle of softball. The SEC is the pinnacle. I don't think Auburn is. The SEC plus Oklahoma, who there you go, coming to the SEC.
Yeah,
is the pinnacle of college softball. It's just kind of, it's going to hurt people's feelings. Kind of a launch pad. I think that may be the state, and that argument bolsters the determination of Mickey Dean, but also can kind of challenge the other side, right? About saying, hey, how do we invest in this program so we're not a launch pad? And it drums up a lot of interesting conversations. We definitely had quite a few of them in that what was supposed to be 45-minute and became a 2-hour Twitter space yesterday.
Yeah. Dustin, I'm looking down there at you, brother. I know you got something on your mind. What's up?
I just when we talk about Under Armour, the injuries thing, that just gets me, you know, that you have players out here that are having to deal with injuries because you can't get the equipment right in 2023. It's just time to make it. I mean, it's time to make a change. Whenever we get to 2025, me and Blake talked about it previously, Harrison. I don't know where you fall on it. Pro Nike. And a lot of that's for basketball reasons, honestly, basketball recruiting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't really have an opinion on the matter in terms of what contract Auburn lands on. And to me, player safety is number one, and maintaining their health, because nothing is a bigger waste of someone's time than being injured while using eligibility. And that, in my opinion, but Nike could be cool. I mean, Chuck was lobbying for it.
Yeah.
But I think that there are a world of solid opportunities with Adidas. I think that it's not as flashy, not as eye grabbing, but I think they do a solid job with their equipment. I mean, I don't know. I don't typically get into the Under Armour discourse because it's one of those I'll believe it when I see it conversations. And Under Armour's filed for bankruptcy twice since they've been with Auburn, and Auburn has continued. So,
yeah.
Harrison, do you think Nike would go with Auburn since they're already with Alabama, and they would?
Yeah,
okay.
they would. Yeah, Auburn's a top 15 brand in college athletics and collegiate athletics. Yeah, they would go with Auburn.
Love that.
They would be stupid to not.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Dustin, you got one more in you?
So you want to do a little baseball real quick, Harrison?
I didn't watch today, guys. I was at work.
No, it's good.
You didn't miss anything. It was what Auburn versus Alabama has been in pretty much every sport all year.
Yeah.
We got smoked.
Yeah.
How far do you think? How far? I'm gonna put you on the spot, man. Make a prediction. How far does this team go?
Super regionals, in my opinion. They're good. They're good. They're hot. I expect them to host a regional. I think everyone expects them to host a regional at this point. Also, I saw a couple numbers where we could have 9 SEC teams host a regional. I'm sick and tired of the SEC's overrated bullshit. All right, yep, done. End of conversation. I get
it's double A ball, Harrison. It's double A ball.
It is. No, you're not wrong. I mean, look at the transition that Sonny Desharak went from Auburn to quite literally double A ball. We have an example. I think that super regionals. But here's my take on this, guys. I'm never counting out a Butch Thompson team. In the beginning of April, I went on the record right after Auburn lost to Alabama and said, I don't know that Auburn's going to Hoover. Excuse me, sorry. I don't know that Auburn's going to Hoover. Yeah, okay. That went really well for me. That was a good take. It's out. It's actually graphic. So it's out there in the world. And I will never doubt Butch again. And I haven't doubted him in the past. I don't know what compelled me to do so this year. Supers, unless this team just decides to forget their identity and just be stupid good, which they have been as of late. I'll tell you this. Yeah. I sure as hell wouldn't want to host them.
Mm-hmm.
I would not want to play the Auburn Tigers.
Me and you had the same take on Hoover. You had the same take on Hoover. I just wasn't bold enough to put it out there. I texted to Blake, but I never publicized it. So,
look, man, my brand is I am what I am. I am. I don't switch up. If I make a mistake, I'll tell you. If I was wrong, congratulations, Auburn fans. I was wrong. You should be happy about that. Yeah. Celebrate. But yeah, I try to stay true.
The one thing that I want to say, Blake, and then I'm done, is just we talk about all this NIL stuff, and just on Twitter this week alone, I've seen people lobby for Bruce Pearl to have his own basketball facility. I've seen people say we need to improve the old scoreboard in Jordan Hare, maybe add seats there, add luxuries. We already know that the baseball facilities at Plainsman are coming, and now we're saying that we need to upgrade and do better in our NIL facilities for women's as well. And On to Victory has less than 1,000 subscribers. So get on there, donate, put your money where your mouth is, kind of thing. And if you can't do that, I understand, life's hard, times are tough right now, but I'll say this, stop bitching then. Like I just said, understand some of these things that are going on. How much money do you think they have? I mean, we're not balling outrageous. Like, there's not billions of dollars. I mean, Yellowwood makes a lot of money. Okay, it's not Apple or Microsoft or something. Like, let's calm down here. So just chill out with all the bitching and all the complaining about every little thing. Auburn has great facilities. They're working on upgrading them. These things take time, man.
I also don't know that Jimmy Rain himself went on and put in his little email and made it onto Victory account. So I don't know that he's one of those 1,000. So I like to imagine Jimmy Rain like on his like iPad, like putting in his email. He's like, what's two-factor authentication again? Like that's in my head. That's how that went down.
But Harrison, Jimmy Rain wants Auburn to lose, though, right? Like
That's what you hear.
It's a booster problem, man. Like he pays all that money for Auburn to lose.
Look, and according to half of my Twitter following, I'm an Alabama fan. I've got a $150,000 piece of paper on that wall right over there. It says Auburn University, but do with that as you will.
Oh goodness, man!
I had full tuition to Auburn. I paid full tuition out of state. So,
yeah, man. Harrison, one thing before we let you get out of here, man, I did want to highlight in the baseball real quick. Bryson Ware become the single season home run leader today. Even though we lost, the guy has been balling out of his mind this year, man. And I just wanted to throw that out there. Big congrats to him. And we're going to get Tanner Bauman on here and talk some baseball with him. I DM'd him and said, hey, come on after Hoover and we'll get you on here and talk about the regionals and hosting and everything. So, I think that's going to be huge. And this baseball team next week at Plainsman, I mean, that's going to be an electric atmosphere. I can't wait. Back-to-back years, man. I think this program is slowly but surely putting itself up there, Harrison, with the likes of LSU, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. And some people who aren't an Auburn fan might laugh at that, but how would you feel if Butch Thompson got a blank check for what he has done with the trips to Omaha, even though he hasn't won it yet? How would you feel? Do you think he deserves it?
Well, actually, I've got to take. I was speaking with a friend of mine that works within the athletics department the other day. Folks, it's time to start talking about the fact that Butch Thompson might be the best coach on campus at Auburn.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, sure. Bruce Pearl's the right guy. Jury's still out on whether Hugh Freeze was the right fit. And there's a lot of conversations. I think Johnny Harris is doing a phenomenal job with women's basketball. It is a real conversation. I had a buddy compare him and lay down some understandable arguments about similarities to Pat Dye.
Wow.
Yep. And that was one of those I was like, what are we talking about here for a second? You always hear your buddies out. You crack open a beverage and you listen. And he had a reasonably compelling argument. What Butch has done at Auburn has been remarkable. Mm-hmm. I mean, rebuilding this program from the ground up and just quite literally, I know this is not an analytical take, but just never being out of anything is unbelievable. And being a perennial host for the regionals is impressive. I don't know about, I hate the blank check concept because I can never commit to a lifetime contract with anyone. But if there was a guy on Auburn's campus that felt good about it, it would be Butch Thompson.
I agree, man. Look, hey, at least give me 8 years, 7 years, 8 years, something like that, man. I just can't see him get off to Mississippi State. That would be gut wrenching because I don't want to go back to the Sonny Galloway days, and those were horrible. But Harrison, man, wrapping this thing up tonight, we really appreciate you coming on and talking women's athletics, baseball, everything Auburn, man. But if you could, before you get out of here, plug your work and your show over at the College Loop, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast. I'm sorry I talked your ear off. I love to talk ball. That's why I pursued a career in this. But yeah, I'm at Harrison Tarr, @ by Harrison Tarr on Twitter. Make sure to come hang out. I love discourse. I love people pulling, throwing shade at me. It's my favorite thing in the world. I love to get into banter. Check out all of our work over at the College Loop. That's at the College Loop. No gimmicks there. If you can spell, you can find it. Our shows are every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. If you want to come hang out, we have a couple of sneak. We don't even tell people, and we go live on YouTube every now and again. So make sure you turn on and ring the bell when you subscribe. All of our other socials are available, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, the whole nine. You can check out my written work at the Auburn Daily, theauburndaily.com. I do whatever, whenever. So I mean, I just kind of plug and play with my man Zach Blackerby and that gang. And that's what we got going on. Thank you guys so much. I enjoyed it, fellas.
Yeah, Harrison, man, anytime, you were welcome back. We love talking Auburn sports, man. And with that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. And like always, we're going to leave you with a war damn eagle. We're out.